How much time do you spend on your phone each day? For the parents in the room, what about your children? I think you would be surprised to hear that the average time spent on social media for ages 18 to 24 is 4 hours, 34 minutes. Have you ever considered the effects this could cause? The media is taking over our world, and young people are undoubtedly the worst affected. The effects of the media are huge, and it's scary to think that the media's influence on children starts in infancy and only gets worse the older you get. Researchers believe that the pressure put upon young people is causing social and emotional issues, but is it also stopping individualism across the globe? There is lots of evidence to prove that social media is conditioning and influencing young people to be very alike, whether it's the way you dress, the makeup you wear, how to style your hair, or more seriously, body shape, diet culture, and disordered eating. The media highly contributes to these issues, and 30 years ago, these issues were in the minority. Now they are one of the leading issues within the healthcare system. As a 16-year-old girl, I'm one of thousands who experience the effects of the media. I am curious about how the things we watch when we are younger impact us today, and how this links to issues of insecurity. I believe it is derived from the influence of all forms of media, and the subconscious things that we are taught almost as soon as we are born. The things we watch as children influence our views. These views are almost impossible to unlearn. Don't you think it's wrong that we are being taught from a young age that we should look a certain way? I've grown up with Disney princesses, and the subconscious effect of this is that from the age of 3, the girls and women I've watched on the TV were all skinny, with perfect white skin and lots of makeup. Their long blonde hair was perfectly styled, and their clothes were figure-hugging, highlighting their feminine features. My point here is that I have grown up with one idea of what a woman should look like. This factor alone completely disregards diversity and individuality, practically forcing young people to be alike. Shouldn't we be inspiring the next generation to be themselves? Researchers have found that female characters account for just under 1/3 of all characters on TV. Discouraging as this may appear, it's a significant improvement from the 1:6 ratio that Effie Barker found in the 1970s. This is encouraging, but highlights to me that we still have a long way to go. If TV and the media presented us with a more diverse list of inspirational figures, with inspirational stories within our shows, I think this would have a really positive impact upon the confidence levels of our young people. By giving them a representational figure to watch on the TV, it would show them that difference was normal, and being an individual should be celebrated, as opposed to being encouraged to act like sheep. As young people are so impressionable, by showing them these differences from an early age, it would teach them that difference was normal. This could create new mindsets and allow diversity to be normalized. If children's TV showed people of all ethnicities, of all body shapes, with all hair colors and textures, with learning difficulties or disabilities, with single parents or stepsisters that weren't ugly, it could bring up the next generation to consider all these factors that we think make people different to be the new norm. Not only could this reduce things like bullying, but it could positively impact social media cultures. If we grew up with a more diverse audience, we'll be more likely to show our insecurities on social media. If the majority of people felt this way, the feeds you see on Instagram, for example, would naturally be more diverse. A society would be more accepting. It is crucial that these differences are implemented into the media from birth, and then, in 100 years, all outdated opinions could disappear. This could lead to the world being more accepting, and even celebratory of their individualities. About 3 years ago, during the COVID-19 pandemic, I decided it would be a good idea to give up social media for Lent, a period of 40 days during which Christians give up something to remember the events leading up to and including the death of Jesus Christ. As a 13-year-old, it seemed like a huge challenge, as I had become so dependent on it, especially during times of COVID. For the first few weeks of lockdown, I found my screen time increased hugely, and the hours I would spend on my phone each day was ridiculous. Not only did this make me feel lazy and like I was wasting my time, it also made me feel dizzy and sort of physically sick. The first few weeks of Lent were strange. I would constantly reach for my phone, open it, and then realise there was nothing to do. Slowly, I began to only reach for my phone when I needed to do something, as opposed to picking it up out of boredom. Obviously, the spare time hadn't disappeared, so I needed to find new ways to entertain myself. I created a new routine, with lots of fitness as well as loads of other fun things I'd never done before. Rollerblading, skateboarding, art and photography. All of these things were completely new to me, added much fun to my day and made me very physically fit. Now, I have no evidence to prove if this was because of the no social media or because of the things I did instead of it. However, I suspect it's a mix of both. I think the no social media and increased fitness levels led me to feel happier within myself. But also, I'd been focusing on my fitness, so my body shape had naturally changed the result. I also had no constant images to compare myself to. I assume that all of these factors contributed to me feeling better about my appearance. Considering everybody across the globe struggles with their appearance, and this worked for me, do you think something similar could work for you? Social media has been proven to negatively impact people's mental health. This comes as no surprise when we are constantly faced with images like this. With expectations put upon young people to look like this, instead of celebrating their differences, you can see how issues like body dysmorphia, eating disorders, and low self-esteem are so prevalent. This pressure to look a certain way is reinforced for that 4 hours, 34 minutes we spend scrolling through social media each day. That 1,667 hours per year of scrolling through images of the perfect body, comparing ourselves to others who, I must point out, are showing the best parts of their life, all through the lens of Facetune. This sense of reality is lost here. We know that what we see online isn't real, yet we aren't able to rationalize our thoughts of self-doubt and negative comparison. Why is this? I think this is one of the effects of the media, that we believe what we see no matter how rationalized we can be. Considering the majority of what we see isn't honest or raw, interpreting it to be real can be harmful. Considering technological influences are making it harder to recognize when an image is edited, it comes as no surprise that people are finding it hard to recognize what's real versus fake. It is especially hard for young people who are still trying to navigate the world, whilst ultimately being deceived by the media. Not only are there pressures to conform to this social standard, but the pressure to follow this culture creates a vicious circle. We are manipulated into liking the images we see, and as a result, we copy this social norm when posting our own images, because we know that we will receive the same credit. This cycle continues and is very difficult to break, which feeds into this culture of conforming to the same style of posts, avoiding expressing individuality. We all want to look like these Instagram models and constantly scrutinize our bodies with the aim of perfection. It's sad to think that we live in a world where we constantly aim to look like somebody else, instead of being happy with who we are and what we look like as an individual. Platforms like Instagram, which was found to be the worst social media platform for mental health, when reviewed by the Royal Society of Public Health, don't help us to celebrate our individualities. What we see isn't what we get, and these images couldn't be a more accurate representation of this saying. Apps and tools like Facetune and Photoshop are used by almost all celebrities and influencers across the media. The use of these apps and editing tools create an unattainable image of perfection, which young people are constantly bombarded to, leading to these thoughts of low self-worth. These influencers don't look like this the majority of the time, but when in the correct angle, stood at the correct lighting, with hours spent editing and photoshopping an image is created that is seen as worthy to be put on social media. This image is then presented to us as their norm and tricks us into thinking that they always look like that, when in reality, this is so far from the truth. If the influencers themselves cannot even look like an image of them most of the time, how on earth are we expected to? If social media isn't helping us to get out of our negative patterns, what can we do to solve this issue and all of the issues I've spoken of today? The first step to change is recognition. Through recognizing a problem, we are already one step closer to fixing it. Then, rather ironically, through the thing I've created to be my enemy today, social media. This will be shared, which makes more people recognize and hopefully act upon the problem. Sadly, step one was the easy bit. All you had to do was sit there and listen. Step two, however, requires you to take some responsibility. I'm not going to stand here and tell you to give up social media for 6 weeks like I did. However, some steps to change could help you to see the same realization I've had. You could take the steps to change by controlling your own feed, or evaluating how the 20 minutes you spent scrolling through Instagram made you feel, and what you can do to improve this. It may be by unfollowing celebrities, companies, or even friends that made you feel any form of negative way. Then we come to tackle the media, especially its influence on young children. We should be doing more to improve diversity. However, sadly, I don't have control over this. So instead, I'm going to provide some reasoning. After some research, it seems that the reason TV is so stereotyped is simply down to finances. It seems that economic pressure compels creators of children's TV shows to use stereotyping as a safety blanket. They know that these characters sell. So even if they are stereotypes, they will use them again and again and again. Just because it sells, it doesn't mean it's right. If we always follow this rule in life, how will we ever bring about change? So, how much time do you spend on your phone each day? I hope that after listening to me today, you will consider the effects and do your bit to celebrate individuality. Thank you.